Personally, I feel that Jazz is the strongest Warrior Quest entry into the Robots in Disguise line after Optimus Prime.
Despite the fact that he's a straight-up repaint Silverbolt, I think that he wears mold well in his own right. Hello everyone, I am Starscream065, and today we will be taking a look at the Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Deluxe Class Smokescreen. We'll start by taking a quick look at his package. It is the standard Combiner Wars blister card packaging for all Deluxes in the line. Stock photography of Smokescreen is car mode down below, combined to form Skyrain and part 4 or 5 of Skyrain. The usual schematic detail placed behind the comic book. Transformers Generations on the side. Come around to the rear. You have Smokescreen's bio up top. I apologize for the tape damage. Stock photography of Smokescreen there in both of his main modes. And the components of Skyrain. Now onto the comic book, which has a nice piece of artwork of Smokescreen on the cover. And unlike most other issues of the Combiner Wars comics that come packaged with the toys, this is actually from IDW's Combiner Wars comic series, and I believe this issue is entitled All That Remains. So, unlike the other comics that ended up focusing on the origins of Devastator and Prowlestator and so on, this is actually based off the toy line, so to speak. So here we have Smokescreen in his car mode, and the colors all really pop. The red, the white, and the blue look great. And most of the red that you see is actually paint, so while this figure is knocked for not having a lot of paint, a lot of that lack of paint is in robot mode, but as you can see, the red on his hood is painted, as well as the red on the back portion of the car, but the red on the middle portion of the car is molded plastic. All the blue is painted, pardon me, molded. And he does have his original number 38 tampographed on both sides of the car, as well as on the hood, and the Autobot symbol as well, with the red backing. Very nice. He does have painted rims, and he rolls quite nicely. Fortunately, he does have Prowl's light bar. It is, however, molded in red plastic, and honestly, from a distance, it's hard to notice. I suppose they would have had to remold the entire windshield piece to take out the police lights. But honestly, they don't bother me all that much. Coming here to the underside, as always with this mold, the robot mode is hidden quite well. The hands are hidden beneath the stumpy feet, and his chest piece hides his head. He does come with the weapons. He has the normal shotgun that comes with Streetwise and Prowl before him, painted in silver, over what I believe to be white molded plastic, or blue molded plastic, and here it is with Prowl's gun, which is cast in white plastic. It can be pegged onto the top of Smokescreen's car mode like so, or pegged into the side, which is my preferred position. And then he comes with his obligatory hand-foot gun, cast in black plastic, and is the same hand-foot gun that's come with all other iterations of this mold. Here it is with Prowl's hand-foot gun cast in gray plastic and painted silver. And then with Dead End's hand-foot gun cast in purple plastic. And the thumb can be folded in, and the hand-foot gun can be pegged onto the top of the car mode like so, or pegged onto either side. However, the car mode ends up being lopsided at that point. For comparison, here he is next to Prowl. You can see that the different colorations of both. And then here he is next to Dead End, and you can see all the remolded parts for car mode. Alright, now we'll get down to Smokescreen's leg mode. So here we have Smokescreen in his leg mode, and his leg mode is, aside from the paint and molded plastic, identical to the other leg modes of this mold. Aside from dead end, remolded parts, etc. He does have a ratchet at the knee, as well as a rotational ratchet at the knee. And then he has a foot swivel, and then his heel spur can pivot to the left and right and down. Now on to arm mode. And here we have Smokescreen as arm mode. And again, just like with his leg mode, his arm mode is identical to the other versions of this mold, barring Dead End with the remolded parts from Streetways on. He has a ratchet at the shoulder and a rotational ratchet at the shoulder. He has a bicep swivel due to the waist joint. He has double jointed elbows at the robot mode hips and at the robot mode knees. And his hand can rotate. The 4 main fingers move in tandem, and then his thumb can pivot up and down and forward and back. And now we'll take Smokescreen into his robot mode. And finally, here we have Smokescreen in his robot mode. And unfortunately, Smokescreen's robot mode suffered from a lack of paint due to the paint used in his vehicle mode. However, Smokescreen does have 2 different shades of blue plastic in his robot mode. The blue used on his lower legs is darker than the blue used on his thighs, and the blue that's used on his thighs is also used on his hands and on his biceps and on his neck piece. However, the blue used on his head and on his chest piece and his chest in general is the same as the blue used on his lower legs. So perhaps the blue plastic was molded that way to further, or to give him more color, or perhaps a factory error. I'm not quite sure. Here is his head sculpt. It is the same as on Prowl. Unfortunately, he has blue eyes, so it makes him a little hard to make out. But he has had his yellow crest, and his face is done in silver. For articulation, his head is on a ball joint. It's limited in downward movement by his chin. It can move up that far, and it can do a full 360 degrees of rotation. His shoulders on a ball joint, they can move that far up. They can move that far in. They can also move on his transformation joint. He has a bicep swivel, over 90 degrees of bend at the elbow, and his hands can move in and out due to transformation on a ratchet. He does have waist articulation, 360 degrees. He has ball jointed hips. Now on my Smokescreen, mold degradation is evident here because his hips are quite loose. His right hip is more loose, is looser than the left hip, pardon me, although it's not too bad. He does have a thigh swivel, and then he has over 90 degrees of bend at the knee. Let's get in the stand. Again, he comes with his silver shotgun, which can be pegged onto his shoulder for storage, or can be held in either hand, like so. And then he comes with his hand-foot gun, which can be held in either hand or stored on his shoulder, pardon me. Now, I think Smokescreen should have came packaged with Prowl's hand-foot gun, because in the G1 cartoon, Smokescreen had very prevalent silver shoulder cannons that were much more prevalent than Prowl's. So personally, I display Smokescreen with Prowl's hand-foot gun. And if you remember in my Prowl review, I showed off a finding by a fellow TFW 2005 board member that if you fold his fingers out and fold his thumb down, you can mount his hand-foot gun on his back to give him shoulder cannons. The fingers slide into the gap between the hood and the hood's hinges, and then the first groove on his thumb can lock into his hood farther down on his back. And while they are off-center, Smokescreen now has his shoulder cannons. And personally, this is how I display Smokescreen in robot mode. For comparison, here he is next to Prowl, who personally I don't display with his shoulder cannons, but I think the black hand-foot gun works better with him, seeing as Prowl is black and white, and has hardly any silver on him. And then here he is next to Dead End. With all the remolding that they did, it's hard at times to tell that they're from the same mold. Personally, I like Smokescreen a whole lot. Part of that bias comes from how much I liked Prowl. But despite the lack of paint in his robot mode, his vehicle mode is awesome. And he still has enough color variation in robot mode to make him interesting. Hopefully, we'll end up getting a blue streak down the line to complete the Jetson trio. But perhaps, as the line is winding down, I'm getting my hopes up. This has been the video review for the Transformers Generations Combiner Wars Deluxe Class Smokescreen. I am Starfreak 65. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and take care.